Countries that are sort of on the hard Brexit side of the equation insist that there is a divorce bill to be paid. The Brits, on the other hand, say, well, hang on, we actually should be getting money from you because we contribute 16% to the European Investment Bank and we'd like that back, thank you very much. We have 16% in all of those beautiful European Parliament, European Commission buildings. We want 16% of the Chateau Mouton Rothschild that the European Parliament drinks on a daily basis. We want 16% of the cutlery. There is a huge debate going to take place about this money issue.
We could, first of all, do a good job in connecting the security and defense potentials. So now, when I say security, I also mean homeland security, counter-terrorism potentials of Britain and the 27, in some kind of privileged security partnership. And we could also create positive spin-off from that security sector to the possibly even more difficult economic and political fields of our future relationship.
I would like to present here two alternative views to that. That is, yes, it might cripple European defence because of the obvious strength that the UK brings to European defence. But secondly, it might also be a blessing in disguise. So two very opposing views. And I would like to further highlight why I think that these two opposing views could come nicely together in a good deal for both sides. On the defence markets, the UK has a very positive influence on open defence markets and has on the defence industry in the UK has propagated to make this into a real defence market, something that a lot of other European countries have not propagated. But on the other hand, there's this blessing in disguise. With all these assets, the material side of the defence part, Britain also has played a veto role in CSDP, and immediately after the referendum results were known, actually the day after, the French and the German governments came with an initiative on defence and highlighting that this would be a subject in which the EU would now, with the prospect of the UK leaving, would now provide an opportunity to take big steps there. So a stronger European defence would not have been possible with the UK, but it might now be possible without the UK as long as the other EU member states step up to their responsibility.
You might be surprised by me agreeing with one of your points on the blessing in disguise front, and to underscore a point that you made. Almost all operations of any size taken by the EU involve non-member states as well. And I regard it as significantly more likely that the UK participates in those as a non-member state without the fear of a European army and shared command structure than it does presently. And I think if your objective is increased British participation, it may seem counterintuitive, but you're actually quite likely to get it more frequently when we're out.
Yeah.
Being Cyprus and being a window of opportunity for potential reunification, and secondly, Gibraltar was going to happen over there because that's I think a very precarious situation right now.
So my parents live in Cyprus, and I spent a bit of time there and spent time thinking about it. There are, as you know, historic ties between the United Kingdom and Cyprus. One of the so-called guarantor powers for peace in Cyprus didn't work out all too well, but that's a responsibility that the UK holds, and we still hold 100 square miles of sovereign territory in which much illicit activity is taking place without law enforcement. So we have a responsibility there, whether in or out of the EU. But this is such an intransigent situation that it's not, a solution is very hard to see, notwithstanding the progress that has been made of late. And I don't think that Britain, in or out of the EU, is going to be the lead player in that. Apart from my own pet theory, nobody else's. In fact, one of the main distinguishing arguments here, it's like Israel-Palestine, is land, and who gets the land, and here's my key, that house over there a generation ago, my parents owned that house and those olive trees. How do you write that, given that people own that area now? I would put much of the British sovereign territory into that equation and say, 60, 70 square miles, you can now, I mean, what are we going to do with it? What are the Brits going to do with 60 or 70 square miles in Cyprus? We can allow it to be chiselled away over time, or allow it to be neglected, or we can put it on the negotiating table. We still maintain our bases. You can happily do that in 10 square miles in Cyprus, but use that as one great gesture to say to the Cypriots, here's some land that you can use in the settlement process. That's what I would do. But if that doesn't, we don't have to be in or out of the EU to do that. On Gibraltar, in my quixotic campaign for Brexit, I even went to Gibraltar and spoke in Gibraltar in the main square. I think we lost Gibraltar about 95% to 5 on the referendum. It was the strongest polling Remain vote for very obvious reasons. Spain has its own, as you know, Spain has, forgive me if I've mispronounced them, but Ceuta and Melilla on the northern coast in Morocco has its own equivalence of Gibraltar, albeit not as economically developed and certainly not operating under the same kind of rule of law. They govern those territories far more directly than we govern Gibraltar. But I think that the position now taken by the Chief Minister in Gibraltar, Fabian Picardo, has performed a volte-face and is now saying we're going to make the best of Brexit and so forth, as he has to. We are very unlikely to see a return to the Spanish stymieing Gibraltar. What they used to do is do 3-hour go-slows when you couldn't get over the border and so forth. There was nothing formal about it when they were against Gibraltar, and indeed it happened in the 80s, was the last really bad time when it was occurring. So it goes to show that actually members of international clubs doesn't necessarily protect you from that kind of activity. I think that the benefit to the region around Gibraltar from Gibraltar activity makes it very unlikely that that happens. Spain's economy, broadly speaking, has got worse in the last few years, and Gibraltar's got a lot better. Its economic input into that area is so significant that I don't think in the short to medium term, especially because of all the tax domicile people that are there spending a lot of money into Spain, I think we're unlikely to see real harm done. But I accept it's a real point we need to think about.
The European Court of Justice is absolutely crucial to the way the EU functions. Both on the sides of trade, it's going to be very difficult to get an agreement with the UK, where the UK insists that it doesn't want to have anything to do with the European Court of Justice because it doesn't believe in the European Court of Justice because they aren't British judges. This deals with the adjudicating mechanism of doing trade with the EU, but it also touches upon non-trade issues. The UK says that it wants control over its own borders. It wants to know who comes into the country. A very sensible, very logical position to have. What you need for that is information sharing. You need to know which passports have been stolen across Europe, which folks we have identified that are traveling to Syria or back, that are going back and forth. There's a lot of data sharing taking place among European countries and European member states. That needs to be policed, or at least there needs to be some oversight mechanism. That is currently provided by the European Court of Justice. Now, smart minds say, well, we can take the EFTA court for this. This is the European Free Trade Area Court that includes Norway, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, and Iceland. But, you know, Theresa May will have to avoid telling Daily Mail readers that the EFTA court takes all of its case law and jurisprudence from the European Court of Justice. So she needs to, at some point, pull a rabbit out of her hat on how to deal with the European Court of Justice. You want to keep the UK in the customs union for one simple security reason, and that is Northern Ireland. There is no solution to avoiding some sort of a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic. Some people say you can have digital tracking. Some people say you can do the check not at the border, but somewhere inland. But in the end, you will have some sort of barriers emerging. And this is a question that rightfully is at one of the 11 points of attention of Theresa May. But to me, it's very difficult to see what the solution is.
A friend of mine recently got divorced, and he's getting along better with his ex-wife than ever before. That's what I want for us.
Fair enough.